we understood in our day that if the quarterback's the most important player on the field, and we got to figure out a way to disrupt him, disrupt his timing. Now, you can be aggressive, but you don't have to be overly aggressive. Like when I think about aggressive defensive coordinators, the first guy that comes to my mind is Buddy Ryan. Overly aggressive.
John McMullen, Jody McDonald, your Mega Mac Birds 365 guys are joined by greatness. All-time Eagle, great linebacker Seth Joyner, who's going to be part of our JAKIB Media YouTube channel family during this upcoming Eagle season. What the heck are you drinking this early in the morning out of a can, Joyner?
Oh, ginger ale, man.
All right.
Yeah. Ginger ale at 9:17. You go that early to the ginger ale?
Hey, it's better than coffee, man.
Yeah, it's very crisp ginger ale. I like ginger ale.
I got coffee.
I'm on board with
Sorry,
Seth.
I need the caffeine.
Yeah. Well, Seth, since we got you, obviously, I want to talk defense with you first and foremost. And, you know, you're known for being that aggressive mindset back on your defenses back in the day. The league's changed a little bit for a number of reasons, but if I told you that Jonathan Gannon is going to play the same way he played last year, but the Eagles defense is going to be better because they have more talent, would you be happy with that? Or do you need to see some schematic adjustments, more aggressiveness? What does Seth Joyner need to see out of this defense?
No, I don't like – listen, I mean, think about the defensive coordinators that have come through this city and the teams that have been successful. I just think the brand of defensive football in Philadelphia really needs to be a more aggressive style of football. Now, there are extremes when you talk about, you know, aggression. And I know a lot of people think that, you know, when they hear me talk about, you know, aggressive styles and defenses is that, you know, I'm talking about all-out blitzes, zero coverages and things like that. I get it that today's defensive coordinators are scared to death of those types of coverages because the thing that they fear most is getting beat deep, you know, where we understood in our day that if the quarterback's the most important player on the field, and we got to figure out a way to disrupt him, disrupt his timing. Now, you can be aggressive, but you don't have to be overly aggressive. Like when I think about aggressive defensive coordinators, the first guy that comes to my mind is Buddy Ryan. Overly aggressive. You know, I mean, I'm sure you guys remember, you guys were around in the media when we had the San Francisco 49ers down 21-0 in the fourth quarter. And Buddy just, you know, took play calling away from Jeff Fisher and went blitz crazy. And we wound up, you know, giving up 4 touchdowns in 9 minutes and losing that game 28-21. That's like silly aggression. But I understood why he did it because Buddy was the type of guy that wanted to send a message. Hey, we're going to see those guys in the playoffs down the road. We want them to know that their asses is kicked today and their asses is going to get kicked the same way tomorrow. So I get it. I understand. But defensive coordinators don't think that way today. And a guy like Bud Carson, he was like a nice medium, you know, guy between he understood when to be aggressive and when to back off. So when you look at defenses today, to your point, John, you're 100% correct. Most of these guys are just scared, and they're going to play this bend but don't break style defense. But I submit to you, what that does is that always puts your offense, you know, in a dicey situation because your offense better be outscoring, you know, the teams that you play. Because the offense is the one that's going to have to make up the difference when you're talking about playing passive style defense.
Seth, I need you to give me your first impressions. And that's all we can have at this point because the young man hasn't played a down in the National Football League yet. But we've got to see some preseason action and practice stuff and the like. They used their first-round draft pick on Jordan Davis, a man-child in the middle of the defensive line. You used to play behind a guy by the name of Jerome Brown, who could do a lot of the same things that Eagle fans are hoping Jordan Davis could do. What you've seen, what the coach have told you, what your impression is of Jordan Davis before his career ever takes off. How good is this kid going to be?
You know, it's funny because, you know, every time we get a defensive tackle in Philadelphia, the standard has always been Jerome Brown.
Jerome Brown, yeah.
You know, when we got Fletcher Cox, you know, when Fletcher started to ascend for a while, we wanted to make, you know, those comparisons, you know, and I used to shoot it down because I'd watch Fletcher play. And at times Fletcher would, you know, show up big. And other times he'd kind of be like Casper the Ghost. You know, you wouldn't even know he was on the field. So I got to a point, I'm like, don't you ever make that comparison, Jerome Brown and Fletcher Cox. He ain't even close to Jerome Brown, you know, on his best day, because Jerome played every play. Now, when you talk about Jordan Davis, what Jordan Davis brings is an ability to play the run like Jerome. My biggest concern about Jordan is his weight, and can he move? You know, can he move? Can he have the type of movement that Jerome had? Because, you know, when people think about Jerome, they primarily think about a run stopper and a guy, you know, every once in a while that could get a little bit of pressure, you know, on the quarterback. But Jerome was highly athletic. His footwork was just, you know, phenomenal for a guy his size. You know, and he was a student of the game. There are many, many times where I'm off the ball behind him. He's got his hand on the ground, and he'd turn back and look at me. He'd be like, "Hey, man, I'm gone. Cover me." I'm like, "Wait a minute. What the hell? You gone where?" You know, now I knew what he meant because, you know, I understood gap responsibility in both directions, flow to and flow away, you know. So I knew what he was up to. So if he was telling me, "Hey, I'm going to take your gap, you know, you cover mine," and you want to know something, 9 times out of 10, when he did that, he made a play for a loss in the backfield. You know, so I didn't have a problem with it, even if it meant me, you know, having to take on 2 guys because, you know, he was taking a chance. Now, does Jordan Davis have that potential? Absolutely. The mass alone helps the Eagles in the run game. But my concern when you move up to number 13th overall, you know, to take this guy, is that did you just spend the draft capital and the movement that you had to make to move up and get him before the Baltimore Ravens, because they were very high on him?
Yeah.
Did you make those moves for a run stopper, or did you make those moves for a guy who can be the complete package, a defensive tackle? Because for all intents and purposes, Fletcher Cox signed a 1-year deal. Couldn't mean the end of his tenure here after this year. If his contract demands are going to remain as high as they are from a salary cap standpoint, you can't keep paying a guy, you know, $14 to $20 million a year to give you 5 or 6 sacks, 3.5 last year per season. That's just bad economics when you look at your cap. But the question is, can they keep his weight under control? Because, you know, last year he played at 355. He went to the combine at 340, tore it up, ran a 4.78. That's what, you know, really threw his draft stock, you know, way over the top. But, you know, when I look at him, you know, he's a little bit of a mama's boy. And you know, mama's boys like to eat. Mama's going to come in town. She's going to cook them sweet potato pies, collard greens, cornbread, all that stuff, you know, that'll make your ass fat. Okay. And at the other end of the spectrum, guys, he lives in the city of cheesesteaks and cakes. You know, so if you don't keep this guy under control, man, he has the potential to be 350, 360, 365. And sometimes, you know, organizations won't put their foot down and designate a weight for, you know, their top players to stay at. And before you know it, you got a problem. Now, it seems to me he wants to be great, and, you know, he'll do the things that are necessary. But I would love to see him down at 325, 330. I think that, you know, if you can get him down to that weight, now you can, you know, get a jump rope in his hand, get a ladder, you know, put him on the ladder every single day, work on his footwork. And now you can work on his movement, because it's one thing to have a guy to clog a double team, or a guy that you put him in the gap, and because he's in the gap, you know, he can dominate that gap. Or even in your 5-man front, which I think the Eagles want to be in, you know, a lot this year. If he's playing on the nose, there's not a center in the league that he can't dominate. But, you know, you still want to be able to move. And I'm not talking about chasing that one play down and then tapping your helmet because you gassed and you out of breath and you got to come out of the game.
Let's talk about that scenario, Seth. If because I think we all think of Jordan Davis right now. He steps on the field probably as I don't want to say elite, but he's going to be a really good run stopper early in his career. Then long term, we'll see if he can develop into something more. But as a linebacker, if somebody is, you mentioned Jerome making plays, having that sort of innate ability to shoot a gap. Somebody who's just taken up two blockers. What does that do for a linebacker? You kind of saw it at Georgia with Nakobe Dean, who's kind of undersized. And when you see Nakobe Dean highlights, almost all the time, that big guy was right in front of him, taking up a bunch of blocks.
Well, listen, if I've never seen a successful linebacker, and I tell people all the time, I attribute, my success in the league, especially my first 8 years here in Philadelphia, to a great defensive front. I think it's hard to play the linebacker position when you don't have, a good front four in front of you. Double teams are going to happen. That's just a part of the blocking scheme, just because, you've got an odd number of players on the field rather than an even number. If there was 12 or 10 players on the field, everybody could get their man, and it's just, man on man. But because you have the odd number, and you got linebackers off the ball with defensive linemen on the ball, and you got to figure out how to get those second level guys blocked, you're going to face double teams. Now, the Eagles weren't that bad as far as double teams were concerned last year. It was just the linebackers did not understand how to fit. When anytime that I got a play side or even backside where one of my defensive tackles are doubled, it's my job to come downhill and take that double team off. Okay, if I can take that double team off, then that allows, the sooner I can do that, the sooner that allows that defensive tackle to maintain his gap integrity. And if I come down and I take him off the right way, whether it's, with the inside shoulder free, whether it's with the outside shoulder free, whether I'm turning it back, to my backer on the inside, or a safety that's dropping in the box, or whether I'm spilling it to the outside. Now what I do is I got my defensive tackle in his gap. I'm in my gap. The other tackle might be in his gap. Now we got a wall. But the problem is when these guys don't come downhill, when the linebackers don't come downhill, then you got 600 plus pounds laying on one defensive tackle, and you're getting movement. So now he's pushing the guy 3-4 yards, down the field. And by the time he comes off to get on me, because I haven't moved from my 4 to 5 yards depth, they've already eaten up 5 yards of real estate. So now the wide receiver, the running back, hits the gap, and he's got a two-way go where he wants to go, or he's just staying close to the double team, until somebody makes a mistake and gets in the wrong gap, and then he exploits it.
Seth, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Go ahead. No, you're good.
All right. This is tremendously intriguing to me. The Eagles are probably going to play a quote-unquote 3-4 defense this year, with Hassan Reddick being a linebacker, whereas we think he's going to be up on line, getting to the quarterback, having to do some serious run coverage as well. You played the majority of your career in Philadelphia in a standard 4-3, which means you were an outside linebacker with four guys in front of you, but you were a guy who could get to the quarterback as a pass rushing linebacker. How would Seth Joyner have done with only three defensive linemen if you were an outside linebacker in a 3-4 rather than a 4-3? I know there's a whole bunch of intricacies to be able to pinpoint and have to break down and the like, but just generally speaking, would you have been even better in a 3-4 defense?
No, I don't think so. I think that my skill set was built, for a 4-3. Now, that doesn't mean that we didn't run, the 3-4. I mean, Buddy was masterful at the things that he did. Sometimes we'd be in a 4-3. We shift the line over. Clyde would stand up, especially early in his career, because when Clyde and I were drafted, hell, I weighed more than Clyde. Clyde wasn't built 35 pounds, So early in our career, we'd morph. We could morph from 3-4 to 4-3 and back and forth, and it causes a myriad of problems, with the blocking scheme if you do it the right way. as far as, playing in that system, it's a big difference between, being the guy that plays over on the strong side that has to deal with the tight end all the time, and the guy that lines up, in the catbird seat, the weak side end, because really he just becomes the fourth pass rusher. And I don't really, especially today, I don't really get so bent out of shape so much on 4-3, or 30 front, just because personnel today dictates defensively what offensive personnel, I should say, dictates the defensive personnel that you put on the field. So primarily, most teams, for the most part, are 4-2, 4-1, depending on, what you bring in the back end, whether you actually go nickel or dime or big dime or whatever it is that you do. But for the most part, you're a 4-2 defense now in these 3 wide receiver sets. The interesting thing for me is going to be, you sign Hassan Reddick, and I'm curious to see how they're going to use him. Do you line him up just, in the 4-man look in third down situations? Are you primarily going to line up in a 5-man look? Because what he brings to the defense is the ability to do what Kerrigan and Jannard Avery could not do last year. They were passing liabilities, in the scheme, especially in the red zone, passing liabilities, in that defense. When they got into it, teams pretty much knew that they had to play zone behind us. So one of those guys was going to come, one of those guys was going to drop, and whatever side dropped, that's the side that they attacked, because those guys didn't have, the skill set to be able to drop into coverage or cover, a tight end or cover, a back out of the backfield. I think that kind of goes away with a guy like Hassan Reddick, because he can do all of those things much more effectively than those 2 guys. But then again, you didn't pay him what you paid him to bring him here, to drop into coverage and cover guys. This guy has had double-digit sacks the last 2 years. That was the value of why you signed him, during free agency. So my biggest question is, how are you going to use the kid? Because you can't line him up, in a 4-man front at 6'2", 235 to 50 pounds, and think that he's going to survive an entire season against, offensive linemen that are 320 to 335. So I'm just really curious as to, how they're going to deploy him and how they're going to use him. I know how I would. I've got all kind of ideas and different things that I could do with him. But, I'm curious to see what Jonathan Gannon is going to do. I'm not the defensive coordinator.
Yeah, JG calls them overhang players, so that's what Hassan Reddick's going to mainly be. But you're going to have the curveball where he's going to have to drop into coverage, because you got to mix things up. But I want to get your thoughts, Seth, on a true off-ball linebacker on this team, and that's TJ Edwards, because I think he's the most underrated player on this team, and a lot of it stems from how he came in as an undrafted guy. And for those who don't know, Seth was an 8th round pick. Back, they don't even have 8 rounds now. So back in '86, I believe, 8th round pick. Do you feel like as a late round pick who's developing? And by the way, Damo is fighting every year to get you in the Hall of Fame. Seth should be in the Hall of Fame, so we should say that. Do you find a kinship with these guys who sort of make their way, undrafted, late round picks who develop? But TJ still got that, people are always saying, okay, when is Nakobe going to take his job? What do you think of TJ Edwards as you look at him as an off-ball linebacker?
Well, I think that, TJ got a taste of what it's like to be a starter last year. I think he's extremely smart, especially in the run game. I think he's gotten to a point where he understands zone coverages, but I think the passing game, is where, his liabilities lie. If I was to, game plan offensively against him, I'd try to figure out a way to put him in the mixer as much as I could. whether that's in man coverage, or whether in zone. I would be scheming, how to stretch him out of his zones, because he doesn't have the foot speed that some of these other linebackers have. But the issue is, when you're one of those guys that there's not much expected of, and you have what's in here, to fight. A lot of times, all you need is an opportunity. And last year, TJ got a taste of what it was like to be a starter, and he's just not giving it up. The only thing that might get him off the field is an injury, and play quotas, if you will, because nobody plays the whole game anymore. So Nakobe's going to get some playing time. Some of these other backups are going to get some playing time just because, the analytics, in my opinion, has kind of ruined the game from the standpoint that says most of these guys only play 55 to 60% of the plays. I mean, as defensive starters, the only guys that play the entire game is the quarterback and the offensive line. Everybody else, they're like rotating them in because the analytics say, the more that they play, the higher the probability somewhere down the road, they may get hurt because they're playing tired. My thing is, why don't you get your ass in shape to play 75 plays a game, so you can stay out there. I never wanted to come off the field. I always felt like if I gave my rep to, my backup, he might get one of my sacks or one of my interceptions or one of my caused fumbles. So, you know what? If I got to suck wind until I can get it together, I ain't coming off the field. But these guys are just wired different, and they've been kind of brainwashed by sports science and trainers and all of this crap, that this is the way that you should do it. So all these guys are going to get some playing time. But, TJ, he's not going to give up the opportunity, to be that guy in the middle, not going into the second year playing, in this system. So he's going to be better in this system than he was last year. And last year, he was the best linebacker, in my opinion, that they had. But, you talk about TJ, and I love an underdog story, man. But I'm telling you right now, that kid, Kazir White, he's going to be a Pro Bowl linebacker this year, man.
Nice.
I love what he does when I watch him play. Extremely cerebral, understands the game. He's thinking ahead in the play, and he's playing the game in the quarterback's head. That first preseason game where he intercepted the ball, the way he kind of baited the quarterback. I mean, you just don't see linebackers do that. They're always looking at the quarterback like a deer in the headlights. And by the time the quarterback throws the ball, now they're breaking. You can see him anticipate that play long before the quarterback even thought about it, thought about throwing it there. So I like what he brings at the table. And guess what? The Philadelphia Eagles
have linebackers.
They finally got a linebacker core.
Yeah.
Are you kidding me? They finally got a linebacker core. I can finally watch Philadelphia Eagles football without pulling my damn hair out. And y'all know I'm bald headed.
Not as much as there used to be. All right, Seth, I need to get inside your head when it comes to quarterbacks. And you get a unique perspective on this. You didn't have to play him in the regular season, but you did have to go up against him in practice. And I'm talking about Randall Cunningham.
Mm-hmm.
Jalen Hurts has a skill. He, after Lamar Jackson, for me, is the second best running quarterback in the National Football League. I think the Eagles would like him to run less this year. I have this kind of niggling fear in the back of my neck that says, yeah, they may take that weapon away from him, and I don't want to see that happen because he made too many plays with his legs last year. I'm cool with reducing it, but I don't want to see it disappear. How difficult is it to play linebacker against a guy like a Randall? You did that, comparing to what Jalen Hurts is. Is this something that the Eagles have to handle very carefully this year, that they want to continue to benefit from it, but not make it disappear?
No, I think that Jalen Hurts needs to continue to develop, and I think he needs to continue to use the skill set that allowed them to have the number one running offense, in the NFL last year. I mean, they averaged 159 yards a game. And a lot of that had to do with Jalen Hurts.
Yep.
Now, when you look at a guy like Lamar Jackson, who's slight of frame, you just knew that it was a matter of time before he was going to get broke up the way that he was running. You look at a guy like Jalen Hurts. Jalen Hurts squats 600 pounds, man.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
you got linebackers and offensive linemen that can't, lift that kind of weight. Now, I'm not worried about the lower body injuries so much as I am, what can transpire in the upper body. Now, can he help himself by being smart, by getting down? Absolutely. But listen, I agree. They've got to just allow him to play the game the way that he plays it. But it's incumbent upon the coaching staff. And this is, this is my take. I was just talking with someone about this just the other day. We're moving into an era where the spread offense has dominated football. So 2 tight end sets, 2 back sets, that's 12 or 21 personnel. You'll see it, but you're not going to see it a lot. Teams want to go 3 wides and they want to open the game up. If that's the case, you see these young quarterbacks in high school and you see these young quarterbacks in college that have these skill sets. They can throw the ball, but they can run like a damn deer. And these coordinators aren't hell-bent on stopping them from running because they understand that if it's zone, you can scramble, horizontally to the line so guys can come back. If it's zone, if it's man, you take off because all they got is one safety back there. He's 40 yards down the field. By the time, the defenders who are man-to-man look up, if he can break, if the quarterback can get outside the pocket, by the time he look back, he's going to get 15, 20 yards before the defense can even react to him. My thing is, when you see, black quarterbacks, very rarely in history have you seen offensive coordinators say, okay, we're going to develop this guy. Like when Lamar Jackson came out, I wanted Lamar to go to I can remember I was on Speak for Yourself with Colin Cowherd and Jason Whitlock. And I said, man, I want that guy to go to New England. And they was like, New England? Why would you want him to go to New England? I'm like, because he's going to be able to sit behind Tom Brady for a few years. He's going to have the benefit of Josh McDaniels and the brain power of Bill Belichick to work with him and teach him how to be a quarterback, how to go through your progressions, how to read defenses, how to notice when teams are trying to disguise things. All of those things help you develop. That's the problem. He goes to Baltimore, okay, and they develop an offense for his skill sets instead of developing a quarterback and having him develop into the offense. So he's got to run the ball the way he's running it because that's the way the offense has been set up. And until he evolves as a passer of the football, they're going to win some games, but they're not going to win a Super Bowl, And most coaches and most organizations, even most media people say, well, that's just not the way we do it anymore. You draft these guys, that high, they've got to get on the field and they've got to play right now. No, you got to develop these players because they're not going to get it, at the high school or the collegiate level. Those coaches are concerned with nothing more than winning. So if these guys don't step outside of the box, kind of like Jalen Hurts did with House this year, go and find you a guy.
Yeah.
Teach you the skill set if your organization is not going to do it. Because if he can play from the pocket, he can operate from the pocket. This is the thing for Jalen Hurts. If you can operate from the pocket and then use your athleticism only when you have to, okay, it's going to be hard to stop this offense because they're going to be able to run the ball if the offensive line is healthy. And people think that, I'm this run, run. It turned their season around last year. But listen, this year they got to find out whether Jalen Hurts can be the guy long term. They have to know after this season. And the only way that's going to happen is Jalen Hurts is going to have to throw the ball 30 to 35 times per game. Okay, he's going to have to complete over 65% of his passes. His turnover ratio is going to have to be somewhere in the 5 to 4 touchdown to 1 ratio. Okay. His QBR is going to have to, be way higher than what it was last year. And his rating, is going to have to go up. Now, is that possible? I say absolutely. He's got a second year to be in an offensive system. It's the first time in the last 6 years of him playing football that he's ever been in a system for more than 1 year. Okay. He's got weapons all over the place. Okay. I mean, you got running backs that can run the football. You got an offensive line that can block both in the run game and the pass game. So you start the game off with dominance by running the football. Then you get into your play action pass and you make it that much easier for your offensive line to block. All of these things, are in Jalen Hurts' favor. Now, as he put in the work off the field, it's one thing to go to the gym and get bulked up. He's bigger, stronger, probably a little bit faster, because I think that injury at the end of last year where he was out for 1 game, set a little something off in his mind. You look at him now, he's a little bigger. But it's one thing in the, on the field to put in the work, but do you put in the work off the field? Can Jalen Hurts close his eyes on any given pass play and tell me at what depth and at what position every guy that's out in the route is at? Okay. That's the level of improvement at quarterback that you have to see, because even though he might be reading right to left, his progression is right to left. If his safety valve is over here on the left and he knows that time is running out, you know where to go with the ball. There's no thought about it. When you look at guys like Brady and Rodgers and all of these, upper echelon quarterbacks, they understand where every single guy is on every single play, every running play. They even understand, and he doesn't have to do that because he's got one of the greatest centers, in the history of the Philadelphia Eagles. But it behooves you to know the total plan. Like when I played, I had to know everything. If we were in a blitz and it didn't work, I could tell you why it didn't work, because it was schemed for one guy to get there. And if he didn't get there, I could tell you why. He took a wrong gap, something, but you could focus in. So as a quarterback, multiply that. Not only do you have to be able to stand at the line and be able to look at the defense and decipher pre-snap what the hell they're doing, but you better know, it better be like walking and chewing gum, when you think about your offense and how it's supposed to operate and who's open and all of those things. And you take it a step further, being able to get in and out of plays. I would assume, I would say there's probably 10 to 15 looks that Nick Sirianni and Shane Steichen and Jalen Hurts will go over each and every week that, hey, if they give us this look, this is what we want to check to. We want to be in this. This gives us the best opportunity, to take a shot or take advantage, because this play is set up to defeat this coverage. The minute you see it, let's check. Does he have the cerebral nature to be able to look out and decipher it in a calm way and be able to get that done? Now, there's no reason for him not to succeed. He's got weapons everywhere. He's got a running game. He's got a tight end who I believe that will ascend into the top 3 of tight ends this year. He's got a wide receiver group that forces you to pay attention. And you don't want to know the last thing? As a defensive coordinator, Bill Belichick always tried to take away your best asset. They couldn't beat the Eagles back in 2017 in the Super Bowl because the Eagles had too damn many assets. Go ahead and take away Zach Ertz. Look at everything else we got. How are you going to stop Alshon and Nelson and Corey and a young baby Dallas? You know what I'm saying? So you have all of these elements, when you look at the Eagles offense, if these guys stay healthy, who do you stop? If you try to take away A.J. Brown, who to me is really, an intermediate route runner more so than he is a deep guy, now you mean to tell me you're going to leave Dallas Goedert one-on-one, with a linebacker or safety? You're going to leave Devontae Smith, who's been making, defensive backs from other organizations look like clowns all summer. You're going to leave that guy one-on-one? So, it's all right there in front of him, and I believe that he's ready to take the step. Now the coaching staff has just got to call plays that allows him, to succeed, with balance. Now that 30 to 35 doesn't mean you come out and you throw the first 10 plays of the game and then you try to get into, your running game. And then over the course of the game, you let him throw, another 25 times. That's a good mix, because the worst thing that for a defensive player, the worst thing is when they start running the ball up your behind and you can't do anything about it. And all of a sudden they go play action pass and they stick that ball out of there. It forces linebackers, tackles, and safeties to give pause.
That's Seth Joyner. Tremendous. I wish we had another hour because I wanted to get into it.
I can do 2 more hours talking to Seth Joyner.
Unbelievable. Football IQ for this game. Seth Joyner on the JAKIB post-game show starts this week after the game in Detroit. Excited to see what you and Mike Missinelli and Devin Caney, everybody's going to bring to that program. Thrilled to have you on JAKIB Sports. We got to get you again because I got to talk about this Jalen Hurts and just the change in the game and his ability to evolve. They don't have as much time to practice as you did, Seth. So we gotta get back in. We got to get into that at some point because
they always. Hey, guys, I'm just gonna call y'all the J&J show. Listen, they always overcorrect. Yeah. Every single time that there's an adjustment, it's always an overcorrection. Okay, football is not a faint of heart game. I get it. You got sued for $760 million, and then the judge came back and slapped a $1.3 billion deal on you. So I get it. Okay, you got to make some adjustments. That will filter all the way down to the youth level. I get it. Okay, but there's an overcorrection because there's not a single football player that doesn't know the occupational hazards of playing the game of football. Okay, and you are mortgaging your physical body for the king's ransom. We know that. We understand that. But the adjustments that they've made are so just ridiculous. I'm watching these guys, with these Gazoo helmets running around it.
The great Gazoo.
See, you got to be over 50 to know who Gazoo is.
Yeah, right? Great Gazoo. So, Johnny and I do.
Yeah,
they're running around at practice with these damn Gazoo helmets on, and it gives the illusion that you're protecting the players.
Yeah, but that's what it is. It's about the illusion. That
helmet ain't got nothing to do with how your brain moves around in your head when you make contact. Whether you got a Gazoo helmet on or whether you got a 1950s leather helmet with no face mask on it doesn't matter, But players realize that, hey, you know what? This is what we do. So now you chop everything back. Practice time. I mean, for example, you tell me. My rookie year, the spring of my rookie year was the most crucial year of my career. Okay, you guys might have to edit some of this, but it was the most crucial, off season of my career because when my rookie season was over, I go in for my exit interview. Buddy asked me, he's like, what's your plans for the off season? Well, I think I'm gonna go back to El Paso, enroll in school, get to working out, get ready for next year. He says, well, you're either gonna be a football player or a student. The off-season program begins February 28th. Okay, so guess where I was on February 28th? Right here in the city of brotherly love.
Yeah.
I was here until the coaches went on vacation in June, Monday through Friday. Every day we worked. Okay, now think about this rule where the coaches can only work with the players during OTAs. What a crock that is. Okay. Yeah. If my quarterback is in the building, okay, I should have the ability as the head coach, the offensive coordinator, and the quarterback coach to be able to work with my guy. I now understand the rule. Man. Because the voluntary, involuntary thing, Buddy used to say it all the time. Oh, the minicamp is voluntary, but don't show up if you want to and see if your ass got a roster spot. From cut down time. You understand? Yeah. So I understand why they put it in place. But even if a guy wanted to come in and work with his coach on basic techniques and fundamentals and watch film and go out on the field and work drills, the collective bargaining agreement prevents him from doing it. to me, that's the biggest travesty, you know, and the fact that you're only on the field for an hour and a half, and all corrections are made, you know, in the film room. You can't correct physically what has to be corrected physically in the film room. It needs to be run again and corrected on the field.
Seth, unfortunately, we be out of time.
I hear you,
like
brother.
I said before, we could do 2 hours, another 2 hours.
Yeah, we could do
if we had the time. We will do 2 hours, 45-minute chunks at a time. We're going to get you on a bunch during the season. We're very much looking forward to the post-game show with you and the crew down at Oceans. Thank you for coming on with us today. We'll talk plenty during the year, big guy. Thank you very much.
You got it.
Thanks, Seth.
Seth Joyner.